Today is the start of another project on the house build, and that is our stone veneer. 3/4 of the house will be wrapped, all but the side that's going to be added onto eventually, and I am really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. This is the last major step for our exterior. One of our friends recommended an older gentleman who's been a mason for a long time, has done a lot of work similar to this.
The guys weren't sure how long this project would take, so we agreed on an hourly rate and that we would provide all materials. This allowed us to perform some of the work ourselves as we could to keep costs down and lend an extra hand to the guys to help them work more quickly.
I have started doing a little bit of the prep work though, so let me just walk you through what the assembly of this wall is going to look like. We wanted our stone to run all the way down. We didn't want a joint for the weep screed here halfway, so the mason really wanted me to put wire mesh on the block, so we're tap conning this on here. He's had a lot better experience with the parge actually sticking to that, so we need to build this out. That's what the primary function of the wire mesh down here is for, is just parging over this block so it's flush with the OSB surface. So we have to add about a 1/2 inch of parge here on the bottom. Once that is built out and we have one long flush wall here, we're gonna run our Benjamin Obdyke Slicker Max rain mat all the way down. Then we can put our PVC weep screed on top of that and then run a whole nother layer of this wire mesh on top of that. That way we have one continuous rectangle all the way down from the drip flashing to the base of the wall that we can put stone on. Let's talk about materials. The first and most important being our actual stone veneer. This is a natural stone product. It's quarried out of the ground and then sliced thinly, 1 to 2 inches thick approximately. That allows us to get away from having a foundation ledge, and this is applied mostly just like tile is to our wall surface. The company is called Get Real Stone. They're out of North Carolina. They actually quarry real stone and slice it thinly and provide it for these applications. The style we're using is called mosaic, so it's sort of like fitting a puzzle together. It's not a linear kind of stacked stone looking pattern, and the color is coyote gray. These are pretty neat too. These are pre-made corners, so these were solid chunks of stone that they came in with a saw and saw cut out. So this will fit around a corner and look like a solid stone, but it's actually not. It's hollow on the backside. Very expensive part of the process here. I think these alone were about $20 a linear foot. So each one of these pieces is like $20. Our mortar is a Lehigh Type S masonry mortar, nothing really special there. And then I also have some bags of just regular Portland cement that the mason asked for so that we could mix it in and stretch this mortar a little bit further on the areas like the bottom parge coat where we want a little bit more waterproofing and don't really need the same looks as just the mortar. We also got 1 ton of sand dropped off in one of these super sacks. This allows easy shoveling and no waste on the ground. I don't think there's anything special about this sand, just normal mixing masonry sand, I guess. This is a galvanized wire mesh, nothing too special. 2 foot by 8 foot sections, I believe is what it comes in. One final component that goes at the top of our masonry walls are these ledges here. These are 3 foot sections. Again, a pretty expensive component. I want to say each one of these are like $25, but this is also a natural stone. It will go right up under our drip edge flashing. That's where our siding and stone meet. I think it will go well with the color we've chosen for the mosaic. To make the job of the masons easier, I told them I would do as much of the prep work as I could. So that started with raking some of the dirt back from against the foundation, sloping it out to the proper grade just so that it sloped away from the house, and then putting a thin layer of 57 stone down. This just keeps feet clean, eliminates splashback. I probably should have done it a while ago, honestly, but this will just give a good work surface for the guys to work on. And then eventually we're gonna come and put 1 to 3 inch diameter river rock, the smooth kind of rounded landscaping rock, on top of this so that it looks a little bit more decorative. Step 2 is applying our wire mesh here. So I'm gonna rip this down into some 10-inch strips. This will go all the way around our foundation on the 3 sides that we're getting stone veneer anyway. And what I'm imagining them doing the first day is just doing the parge out on this bottom wall, so that has a little bit of time to cure. While it's curing at the end of the day, I'll run the rain screen mat, the weep screed, and the second coat of wire mesh. Here's what I'm doing to apply the wire mesh. It's just going about 1 inch below the edge of my OSB. I want to keep a little bit of an air gap here when they parge this so that any water doesn't get trapped and get stuck there. It can just go right down in the rain screen mat to the ground. I'm using 1¼ inch tap cons and going right through at 8 inches on center, staggering top and bottom. Probably could have used ram set nails with the washers for this. It would have been quicker, but I didn't really think of that till after I bought the Tapcons. So here I am. Luckily, block drills really easily. It's kind of a soft material compared to just solid concrete. So my regular drill and small bit is going right in it, and I only need to go in about 1 inch anyway for each screw because they're only 1¼ inch screws. I'm leaving about a 2-inch overlap between pieces of mesh and putting a screw through the overlap. Other than that, it's a pretty simple process, just a little bit back-breaking, being hunched over and doing this right at ground level. I did learn a trick about this wire mesh from a very kind mason on YouTube who shared this. There's actually a right side and a wrong side to apply this to a wall. When you look at it, all of these little mesh holes are punched at an angle. What you want is the downward slope of this wire to be going towards the wall so that all of the parge is falling into those grooves and pushed towards the wall. If you go the other way, all of the little grooves are like this. Everything just tends to slide off the face of it. This direction with the little grooves down towards the wall is the way it needs to be applied. Here's my detail at doors. Because we have 6-inch doors, they have this sill extension that would be otherwise unsupported if I didn't do something here. I could have ran stone all the way across, but I felt like I wouldn't get a good solid surface for this thing to rest on. So I decided just to use some pressure treated lumber. This is just a 1-inch deck board. I have some drainage holes cut in it on the front and back side, and then I'm gonna use some PVC trim board left over from our board and batten. I'm going to Cortex screw that right onto here. That should support this sill nose and it won't have any exposed fasteners.
There will be a small landing in front of this door, and originally I thought I would just run the stone underneath the door and space the landing out from the wall, but then I decided that would be a waste of stone veneer, so I cut this portion under the door out later.
Okay, I feel like kind of a doofus. I got through 2 of the sides of the house and realized that my old drill here, which I got for $40 at a flea market, I was literally looking at the drill and I'm like looking at the label for some reason and noticed that it says hammer drill / drill driver. I have 2 drills and the other one is definitely not a hammer drill, and I literally am just discovering this now. And the only reason I didn't know it is because this thing has been through hell and back even before I bought it from this flea market, and all of the symbols on the top are worn off, but apparently this one is hammer. And so I've been using it over here, which is just regular drill. Nope, this is hammer, and this thing now cuts through the block like butter in the hammering mode. So the more you know. If you got a hammer drill, use it. Ready, here's normal drill. It works, but it takes a while. Here's hammer drill. It just plows right through it. Glad I found it out now and not at the very end. Thankfully, that is finally done. That was a lot of work on the back and knees. Day 1 of stone veneer application is now underway. The guys are over here. We're mixing mortar up, about ready to put the parge on the lower part of the wall. Then we'll start doing all the other layers. The drainage mat, the weep screed, the wire mesh. It's awesome to finally see some progress, and our exterior is nearing completion. The guys are working their way around the corner with the lower coat of parge, and we're trying to think through how to do some of these details here right around the garage doors. It's going to be a little bit different because we are going to have a driveway that's coming basically right up to the top of the garage, maybe 1 inch or 2 down. But that's going to impact where we put our weep screed, because everywhere else we can easily put the weep screed down 6-8 inches. And that way we'll just have our normal grade. There's no need to have any stone coming right up to the lip of the foundation like you would need with the garage door. This is why a lot of builders do garages with 1 course of block up before the framing starts, but I really didn't want to do that for a number of reasons. A lot of it had to do with the radiant floor and how we were insulating the foundation. The thickness of the walls played into it, so I wanted to keep everything flat, so the slab is flat with the tops of all the block, but it does make situations like this a little bit trickier. So I think we're going to either have to maybe run this weep screed at an angle, kind of down like this to follow where the actual grade's going to be. In the middle here, because we have 2 garage doors next to each other, the grade is not going to dip down that much in between. So we might just run the weep screed flat here, just sort of a few inches down across the bottom. And there we'll just make sure to keep the weep screed just above the driveway level when it is finally graded. We got a little bit rained out yesterday, but the guys were able to finish most of the parge. They're back this morning finishing it, It looks pretty darn good. I'm happy with it. It's much better than I could have done. And one little detail I have here is I had them rake out right underneath the OSB. That way there's a little bit of an air gap there. No moisture can get trapped up against the bottom of the OSB and the parge. I have the sheathing sealed with liquid flash, but just a little extra precaution. Now the project is to wrap all of the base with Benjamin Obdyke Slicker Max. That's our drainage mat. And then we'll put wire mesh and our weep screed on top of that. That weep screed will define the bottom edge of our stone. Key's gonna be keeping it out of the mud. If you wanna hold the roll, I'll start stapling. Folding up our filter fabric, serve as sort of a bug screen slash screen in general. Unfortunately, I can't staple it down here though because of the fact that we're over masonry now. So it's going to be held in place with the weep screed, which is going to get Tapconned into the masonry. Well, that was a pretty productive morning. We got this wall totally prepped, the weep screeds on. Let's talk a little bit about the fasteners I'm using. These are 2.5-inch stainless deck screws with a number 10 washer on them. There are special stainless panhead screws with the washer integrated, but I was too late on buying them and they are not carried in normal stores around me. So that's why I went with this sort of assembled option. So there is a little bit of a tedious step in assembling the screws to the washers, but it's getting the job done just fine. They go into the studs really nicely. I don't think we're gonna have any issues. Here's what I decided to do with the garage. This pencil line indicates where I was guessing the approximate grade line would be. So we just sort of angled the weep screed up at this point. That'll give us a little bit of a frame for the stone here, but then we're gonna put another stone like right here as well. I'll have to screw some more wire mesh there. That's just to give a little bit more continuity as it goes into the garage. You'll see the top edge of that stone. When I do the final grade, I'm gonna use all crushed stone to backfill up to at least the bottom of this weep screed. So add some more of this crushed stone until we get up to there. Actually, I might even hold it back a little bit because then we have this nice decorative river rock that I want to put in the perimeter of the house. I'll leave the bottom of that river rock just below the weep screed so that we don't risk clogging the weep screed up. And without there being any soil here to do backsplash from when it rains, I don't think we're going to have any issues with the weep screed getting clogged up or termites or bugs or anything getting up in there. The wall up here is going to be a little different because we have a garage door next to other doors. So I don't really want the grade to kind of pitch down as much as I had it drawn there. I don't think that's going to look good. So we sort of brought the bottom of the weep screed up here about 6 inches higher. And that will allow us sort of a gradual transition. That will be the grade level. And then we're gonna do like a step change right here where the door is, because we're gonna have steps in front here anyway. So that'll kind of break it up, but the weep screed will then drop down to where it normally is, which is where it is over in that corner.
All the fasteners I used were into studs at 6 to 8 inch vertical spacing. In areas near doors, I put one by blocking flat on the inside of the wall where there was not a stud.
We posted a reel about our stone veneer prep on Instagram, and one thing we caught a lot of flack for in the comments was putting this weep screed over top of the drainage mat. The typical spec for this is another layer of house wrap on top of the existing house wrap and putting the weep screed up underneath that second layer of house wrap, maybe even up under the first two. I'm not quite sure because I've never done it. But we did not choose to do this just on a whim. This was the detail recommended by Benjamin Obdyke for a stucco stone veneer application, and it's because this PVC weep screed is not thick enough typically to cover that extra 1/4 inch of the Slicker Max drainage mat. The argument could be made that with the holes on the outside for this weep screed that the drainage mat would otherwise go right into the holes. But when I'm picturing water running down this wall assembly, I mean, not that it's going to really do that anyway, but when there's moisture trapped behind this wall assembly, there's really nothing stopping it at the base of the Slicker Max to exit. There's a little piece of filter fabric, and in some places I've actually had to cut that away. So it's really just an open drainage cavity all the way out to the base of this wall. I don't really see how putting the weep screed behind it would really help that much. In fact, it might even hinder it in the fact that there's only a hole every 4 or 5 inches or so that's the only place that the water can actually collect and escape at the base of the wall, rather than a continuous open drainage gap at the bottom of the wall. And one other thing to note, there is a liquid flash, a fluid applied barrier that we put on right after framing was done, and that bridges the sheathing to the foundation with a thick rubberized membrane coating. It's made by Huber Wood. It did a really nice job at sealing that joint, and it withstood a lot of rain in the time that it was exposed. So with a little bit of moisture that might end up behind this stone veneer, I'm really not worried about it one bit. I do see why people were concerned, because it's not typical in how they've always seen it done, but as long as we're following the best practices of letting water get down and out of the wall assembly, it's going to be good. There's nothing in this assembly that's stopping the water from escaping, and so I'm pretty confident that we're not going to have any issues with this assembly.
And that's a wrap on our prep work for this stone veneer. Next up, let's get some stones on.